Over the past 40 some years, I've had some great stories unfold in my life. Some of them I created for myself, others were given to me as a gift. And I'm going to go to 1987. I was working in Uganda in Africa, and I was driving along one of the roads. I was actually supporting two different projects. One was a tree nursery children's school program where they were planting trees to grow beside the school so that they could put them up on the hills to stop the landslides that were taking place. And the second one was I was supporting an HIV/AIDS health promotion program. I did one of the first English-speaking surveys of what a country knows about HIV and AIDS, and then wrote the health promotion proposal, got it funded, and that brought me to the end of my time in Africa, in Uganda. But it was on this particular day we were driving, and when you come across a rocks in the middle of the road and it's daylight, then that means stop, because this is a military roadblock, and to my left were soldiers, and the first soldier walked up to the vehicle. I had rolled down the window and I was ready to speak with the soldier, and the machine gun came up in the window and the barrel touched the tip of my nose. And I went, okay, this is a little different than usual. And I started to answer the questions that were being asked of my driver. I did my best to stay present. At the same time, I was thinking I'd rather lose my listening and hearing and not my head. So I moved the machine gun away, and it would pop back in front of me, answering questions, looking at the soldier, moving the gun over, and kept doing this. And then I noticed that the gun started to wobble, and I could hear laughter. I didn't know where it was coming from, but I could hear laughter. And I kept pushing it away and answering questions, doing what I could to stay present. And then all of a sudden there was the driver said, okay, we're going. And I'm okay. And the gun went out the window, and I still heard a bit of laughing, and we started off, and I'm looking at the rear view mirror on the side mirror. And I said to my driver, I said, how old was that soldier? And he said, she was about 14 or 15. And yes, it was a young woman. She was part of the military in that area. That was her job. So I was in her workplace. The laughter that I had heard in the background were the other soldiers laughing because the gun was wobbling, and it was partly because it was quite heavy, and for her to keep it up at that level, it was difficult for her. So I felt for her in a sense. It was quite an interesting feeling that came across me, and I felt for her situation. And then I sort of tuned in, and I went, no, hang on, let's put this in perspective. So for the next little bit, as we were driving along, I sort of went into my own little world of thinking. And I at that time, I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to do whatever I can for this world so that no young person, man or woman, would ever have to raise another gun at another human being. And I just committed to it. I just went into it. That was something that really had meaning to me, but it was also something that I could share out for the world and be able to help the world to be better at what it is doing. And again, this is 1987. A lot of things are happening in the world. And I just went, yep, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And one of the ways that I know I make my commitment is I slap my leg. And yep, I'm going to do it. And I made the commitment to it. And that brought out a return back to Canada. And then I went back out again to Africa, in this case to Kenya, working on the South Sudan program. And I was air operations coordinator for the relief aircraft. So it was a little bit different than what I had been doing in Uganda. But at the same time, it provided a lot of deep learning. And in particular, I found a lot of these great books that I could read And they had a new age flavor. Some of them would be in systems thinking. They just happened to be left by other delegates in the area, and I was just picking them up and reading them. And then it came to the close of that mission and the work that I was doing. I came back to Canada, and I found myself in a place of, what am I going to do now? Because the job that I had, I had to give it up by taking the missions. And I didn't know really what I was going to do. So it was sort of like, it was quite a time. And I had done a bit of entrepreneurial work prior to that. But this one really said, no, you're going to have to either become an employee or an entrepreneur. And I said, okay, I'm going the entrepreneurial route. And I set up through my mind and then through actions to create something called the WELLth Learning Network, WELLth. And it was a way to play with the word wealth with the WEA, because when you actually look at wealth from an EA perspective, it comes from the root of hale and hearty. And that was really what I want to do, is live a life of hale and hearty and do what I can to be for the world. And that was that was the spark that got me going. And then I started doing programming around WELLth Learning Network. And that provided a lot of great experiences. I went into the team development area, management and leadership. I got chances to go to Africa again. I got a chance to go into China. I did a lot of traveling within Canada and the United States as well, sharing insights that was sort of sparked by this deep learning. But what really came to mind was the notion of really understanding what it meant to be an educator. Yes, I've done a lot of learning, but how is it that I can be an educator? How can I be a great educator, remarkable, memorable? Actually, I want how to become an extraordinary mentor. So I really started to hone my craft, and that's when I started to write a whole series of books. And that just kept unfolding for me. I started businesses with people, and they would crash. I started another business, and it would crash. Started another business, it would crash. Got to a point where I was CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, and it crashed when my business partner decided he didn't want to work with the investors. So that was a really hard one. And it was during that time that I got into a conflict with myself. Am I worthy? Am I good enough? I really took a bit of an internal hit, but I didn't know it at the time. But it was through some support that I got when I hit that sort of crash and burn, was that I was carrying some interests, some of what I wanted to do for the world, but I was also carrying some images of things that I had seen over the years and through my travels, and what people do to each other. And I hadn't known that it had actually affected a lot more deeper inside of me. It was through some wonderful interventions by a friend of mine who got me to really understand what was going on. She helped me put the initial fingers in the dike to stop the leaks, and then I was able to regroup, and using walking as one of the ways in which to do it, and then did more of the writing. And what that did was it brought an awakening to me that I knew that I really could achieve great things. And that's what set me on the path of doing the work that I'm now doing. So I switched the company name from WELLth Learning Network to WELLth Movement, because it better represented what was going on, as this notion of the movement. It's a bigger flywheel that I could actually get going. But it also gave me a way to do my own transition. to transform myself, transcend to something that was, I will call it better, in some ways, more extraordinary and in opportunities. Now I find myself working on some big international projects where I'm supporting the funding and then doing the project management. I've really come to appreciate how important trees are to me, and it's actually got me sparked to write some trees and children's stories. So I've started to sketch out that. But it's also, and I think the greatest thing, which came back to that linkage to being an educator, is to understand what it means to be an extraordinary mentor. I would actually go so far as an extraordinary facilitative mentor. And that got me going. I'm now in another business association with someone, and it's a wonderful exchange that we have, because I've learned from the ones where I crashed and burned. And we've now created the international mentoring community, where we're able to verify competent mentors. And that is a great contribution, because like myself, about being for the world, I can also guide mentors to be for their mentees, to be for their community, to be for the world. And so I'm in a great place. And it's because of that that I get an opportunity to share this story with you.